comes back. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another GFMA evening of poetry, music and spoken word. And we have some wonderful performers this evening. Our guest is Peter Corwell. Peter is a journalist and a writer and has worked with GFMA for a long time. So we're going to be meeting Peter later on and finding out about all his work. Can I remind everyone before we begin to stay muted unless you're performing? And if you can find the chat function, it would be lovely if you could share your comments in the chat. I won't be able to pick them up because I can't see it all from here because we're live in the GFMA studios and Peter is here and we're going to be there with Peter very shortly. So let's begin. So I'm going to start the evening off with a song as usual. And this song actually is a lullaby, so I'm really hoping I don't put everybody to sleep really at the start. But it's a lullaby that I wrote for a new baby. It was my nephew. It was during lockdown and we couldn't see anyone, and it had been a sort of difficult birth, and we were lucky to have him. And this is what I kind of wanted to wish for any new life really that comes along. It's called Little One. Let me sing a lullaby and hold you as you close your eyes. Let me stay here by your side, softly, little one. Lift your gaze above the stars. No journey's quest a step too far. Rest your tiny hand in mine, safe till morning light. And when the way seems cold and dark, may you always find the path. May you hold the light in dark, safely, little one. And lift your gaze above the stars. No journey's quest a step too far. Rest your tiny hand in mine, safe till morning light. Let me sing a lullaby and hold you as you close your eyes. Let me stay here by your side, softly, little one, softly, little one. Thank you very much. I hope you're not all asleep now because we need to be awake because we're going to listen now to Zonconto is going to go first because he's really busy at the moment and doing some youth work. So Zonconto, the spoken word name happens to be his bloodline's totem. He's a spoken word artist, a storyteller, youth mentor, qualified community services mentor and grassroots community organiser. Considers himself to be an Afro-empath, driven to ensure that young people find joy in the power of words and storytelling. That sounds wonderful to me. Are you there, Zonconto?
No, he's not.
Ah.
He was saying, there he is. Yes.
Ah, lovely. Fantastic. So I'm going to hand over to you now. I've just introduced you, and we're all excited to hear what you're going to do.
Okay. I had a little like my thing shut down for a moment, but I got it back just in time, you know.
Thank goodness for that.
I hope everybody has been having a good day. So this poem that I'm gonna give you is called Giving Flowers to the Living. So instead of giving flowers to the living, how about we start teaching our children how to grow their own rose gardens? Tell our children that roses have thorns as their only defense against weapons against them. That if they really meant to hurt us, they wouldn't tease us with their fragrance only to make us bleed. Because if roses were us, we would say, they're just humans. Let them be. How many flowers do you know that have declared wars? And if it seems like they did, wasn't it because some stranger decided to enter a garden uninvited, too distracted to see the trespassing sign? How many things do we put fences around that would have openly spread their arms? But we are the ones that actually bear arms to keep out intruders, protecting the illusion that to have more is to be the happiest. Yet we barely walk in the gardens we keep away from our neighbors. We wouldn't tell a single flower from the next, content with the power of having discovered it first. Yet only the poor gardener that tends the roots and still the shoots to replant in her backyard is perhaps the only one closest to the smell of God. My mother grew flowers too. She was closest to the smell of God. I think it had something to do with how she could not surgically remove the love she felt inside, lay it on the operating table and let it generate as much light as the darkest corners of the world were able to hold. But even our own fathers were too distracted searching for gold, preferring to dig down than to dig deep into her soul. So her garden wilted in the sun with no one seeing anything different regarding what that same garden's flowers had become. How their petals spread like colorful weighted wings, which only angels could dream. How they showered naked in the sun's rays until their soft skin was a miracle of illusion. How even the queen bee admittedly entered my mother's garden discreetly, started a hive in secret, too selfish to share the recipe. How the ghost of every bee still swarms my mother's heart for sweetness, and the ghost of every flower that wilted shields her smiles with its petals, weaving a quilt made of every aroma which pries the spirit open to reveal its innermost garden, with no trespassing signs posted, except to leave everything the same way you found it. Zomkondo Gabatela, Mzelankata, Mbangazit. Thank you.
Oh wow, that was absolutely fantastic. So powerful, that message, so beautifully delivered with sincerity, really. Absolutely beautiful. Some wonderful imagery in there and descriptions, and some of that linking, I thought it was
Thank
fabulous.
you.
And do have a
I
look, because
appreciate
people have
that.
got, people have got
And
lots of
I want to leave you with the pictures of these great souls,
Yes, I can
and
see those there.
to make you remember that they lived in this lifetime. So thank you so much, and
Do you
thank you
want
for
to
giving
read
me
them
a
out
chance.
for us in case we can't see them
Yes,
in the
yes,
time?
Malcolm X,
Yes.
Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Joe Lewis, um, uh, what's her name? Angela Davis.
Yes. Oh, that's a wonderful thing to leave us with.
Okay, thank you so much. And may you all be blessed eternally. And I'm grateful that we get to share this wonderful thing called poetry. Thank you.
Yes, we too. You've really enhanced our evening. Thank you so much. Absolutely
One love.
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
One
you.
love.
That was wonderful. We're going to move on now to Constanza Maria, who's a member of the GFMA Writers Group. GFMA have a writers group that meets once a month where we sometimes set a topic and we share work between us. But this is the first time that Constanza is going to come and actually present some of that poetry at one of these evenings. So a very big welcome to you. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here. And I joined the writers group just a few months ago. So I'm still getting used to reading aloud the things I write. And the topic for that piece that I am reading today was food. So it's called Brioche Kipfel. Even before they entered the bakery, the aroma was impossible to ignore. The fresh bread, the sweet pastries all carried their unique scents, intermingled with the unavoidable smells of the traffic, of course, well ahead of the site of the building. She was very young, but she already knew she had to be very careful now. Every word she uttered, every movement she made had to be purposeful, pleasing, just so. And still, even if she got it exactly right, it might already be too late. He might say she ruined it all the day before, or even the day before that. The man she was with was not her friend, yet she was stuck with him. His teasing, his mocking, his sadistic little games. Would they even enter the bakery? Would they go in only for him to buy a loaf of bread instead of the things she wanted? Or worse, would he ridicule her in front of the bakery staff and the other customers before leaving empty-handed? They arrived at the door to the shop, the aroma of the freshly baked goods now so overpowering. She was no longer able to hold on to the technique of making herself feel ambivalent about the special treat she might receive inside, just in case it was withheld. She was so close. She wanted to run ahead inside and shout out what she wanted. So one of the ladies would already pick one off the overflowing shelf with those silver tongs and give it to her. She had made that mistake before. It was a big mistake. He had scolded not only her, but also the bakery staff member for listening to a child and not waiting for her father. Presumptuous was the word he had used for the shop lady. Insolent and demanding, he had called his daughter. He had made her give it back to the nice lady. And even though the little girl had now touched it and it could no longer be sold to another customer, the bakery staff had not tried to charge him, hadn't dared. It was quietly put on the discard pile in the corner instead. The little girl had not even dared to lick her fingers in order to get a tiny bit of the sweet taste that had almost been hers. Another mistake, bitterly learnt in the past. They were in the bakery now, so close and yet so far away. She must not lose her composure now, stay fully attuned to him, guess how he wanted her to behave, how to move, how to speak. Must not respond to the lady even if she addressed her directly in her friendly Viennese accent, not without his say-so. They were at the front of the queue now, and the little girl was relieved she was not spoken to directly by the staff member. Mercifully, the woman behind the counter looked at her father, took his order, and now it was actually happening. The coveted brioche kipfel was in the white paper bag and being handed to him. He paid, and they left the bakery. Now, the next phase of his cruel game began. Would he actually give it to her? She was watching him closely now, trying to read his posture, study his smile. Was it sincere or fake? Although he had made the purchase, she had not yet won. Something else she had learned on previous occasions. It would not be the first time for the teasing to continue all the way to the nursery, only for him to eat it himself just before she went in.
Fantastic, thank you. Absolutely great for a first performance here. Really, really beautifully read. Your words sort of, you paint the picture with the words, really. It's so clear. And I can just make out things that people are saying, and lots of people are saying that, like beautiful storytelling. It was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next, we're going to hand over now to Louisa Lemarchand. So Louisa is GFMA's wonderful project manager and is incredibly multi-talented. A writer, singer-songwriter, director, playwright, to name just a few talents, really. Louisa Lemarchand, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, so it was my birthday on Tuesday, and I spent it with my grandchildren and children, some of them many children, some of them many grandchildren. And so I thought I would read this poem from this book, which is Whispers in the Mist of Time, collection of poetry by moi, published in 2008. So, yes. Birthday. As I scan the journey that has become my life and read the volumes that make up my existence, I've taken many breaths since my first breath. I've walked many steps since my first step. I've spoken many words since my first word. The paths have sometimes been treacherous, and my companions not always worthy of my affection and trust. But sometimes, even in the thickest, darkest forest, can be found a small flower to brighten and encourage me on my journey. In the prettiest meadow, there may lie in wait for the unsuspected traveller a deep, engulfing bog, ready to draw into its depth any passing stranger. For nature, like people, can be unpredictable. Yet, as we follow the river, we surely find the sea. So we trust in truth within us to guide us. We will surely find our own individual paths of learning, rich and diverse, powerful yet subtle as a single petal of a flower. As I reflect, it seems that time is as flexible and as rigid as I allow it to be. Yesterday seems to be as far in the past as my earliest memory. A week becomes a year in a lifetime, moving so fast like the strongest wave crashing to the shore and rushing back into the sea, pulling on itself, a cycle of highs and lows, until the balance of life turns full circle. And there within the hurricane of life is the eye of the storm, and so within my torrent of existence is the stillness that has grown, like the delicate sapling into a giant oak, with the strength, knowledge and beauty. Beyond my lifetime of changes and extremes, of pain and pleasure, of lifetimes within a lifetime, of gifts and burdens, of thoughts without actions and actions without consequences. Okay, so this is moments of inspiration. I think all of the writers would probably understand this when you just suddenly, it's like a bright light begins to shine, and before you know it, something is written, and it's like you haven't really written it. You're in tune with something deep within yourself or whatever. Moments of inspiration. At moments of inspiration, when the light of creativity burns brightly, then the stillness of the mind and the passionate experience hold court with the soul. There, in that moment of all-encompassing beauty, when we surrender our intellect and release the power deep within ourselves, we commune with our higher consciousness and have knowledge of our true selves, undaunted by the opinions and reflections and reactions of others, unfettered by the constraints of our restrictions. From this place, we look out on the world and wonder at its immense complexity. Each word we write, each note we sing, each delicate stroke of the brush, desperately trying to describe that feeling, that moment of sheer bliss, a moment of inspiration when the light of creativity burns bright. Heaven is just a breath away.
Fantastic.
So now that I've got you all into a deep spiritual place, I'm going to blow that all away with the plumber of Plumstead Common. The plumber of Plumstead Common earns a very large amount. He will come and turn off your stop valve and drain your bank account. He drives a new Mercedes and drinks Chateau Neuf de Pape. He sometimes eats quail's eggs and listens to hip-hop and rap. He's very well educated, owns a house in the Algarve. He's terribly nice and polite, sophisticated and awfully suave. He works in the winter. He only works in the winter. In the summer, he goes on retreat. He's lactose intolerant, you know, and doesn't eat fish or meat. He learnt his trade from his father, who lives in a Peckham flat. He drives an old Morris van and wears a dirty flat hat. His father would never vote Tory nor Liberal Democrat too. I'm Labour and always will be. A Conservative, that will never do. The Plumstead from Plumstead Common reads the Times and does the crossword. When asked if he's expensive, that's quite absurd. Quality doesn't come cheap, you know. For Bollinger, you have to pay. If you'd rather drink Asti Spumante, well, hey, that's okay. I'm a plumber who gets the job done. Burst pipes, boilers as well. The cheaper the price of the plumber, he's probably the plumber from hell. The plumber of Plumstead Common is thinking of retiring next year. Well, I've earned enough in my lifetime, and I am 35, my dear.
Fantastic, Louisa. It's really great to hear. It's always great to hear your work. Such a range, actually, when you write, and when you often present like 2 or 3, they're all so different. I loved your sort of the one about inspiration. I think, how you've managed to capture anything quite so difficult in words. You know, it's like it's almost Wordsworth. You know, that's what Wordsworth tried to do. How he connected with a commune in nature. You know, I think that's up there with the Wordsworth. Actually, I think it's brilliant. And as for the plumber of Plumstead Common, well, I haven't got words for anything so fantastic, but I think we all enjoyed that. It was brilliant. The kind of juxtapositioning of the words and not quite what we thought was coming, but utterly fantastic. I certainly like Peckham because, you know, I am originally from Peckham, so I'm always interested in anything from Peckham. But thanks so much. That was absolutely lovely. What a great evening we're having. This is wonderful, isn't it? And it's going to carry on, actually, a really great evening with everything that we've got left. We've got Lantern Carrier, who always absolutely really lifts our evenings with the most wonderful poetry. So Lantern Carrier is a poet who tries to serve and to bring light and to elevate in light and understanding, endeavours to reach the heart, to bring wisdom to his pieces, and is a specialist in nature imagery, music, light and dance in their kaleidoscope of different forms. That's what's written about you, and having heard you several times and met you and had the great pleasure of interviewing you, that is so right. I think that is, you know, it's what you aim to do and it's what you actually do. So I'm going to hand over to you now to for some wonderful poetry.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Can you hear that echo? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lantern.
That's better. Homage to the light. She dries the copious tears spilling from my broken dreams, the heaviness of loneliness, the stains of deep remorse. Gently, she pats the roses covering the scars where thorns once sat, enmeshed in a foliage of desires. You've done well, she whispers. The light that shines within has erased the darkness of a shadowed past. Arise, my sweet, sweet angel. The brute of past regrets shall no more shine. The fragrance of the dawn is gleaming. I felt my shoulders breathe. My heart cried tears of joy, the soul now laughing with the sun. She kissed my wounds, no more the toil of suffering and despair, for I was born anew. The voice of freedom sang to me, her bird of hope now perching on my newfound dreams of love divine, my lack of expectations. I bowed, paid homage to the light, paid homage to the light. That's poem 1. The spirit of the sword. Honor permeates a glint of razor sharpness and blinding speed. Some will die to preserve this code, and Tesoro almost lost his life for it. Yet technical and spiritual mastery was the ultimate victory. Numerous tales were told over centuries about the spirit of swordsmanship, of how to preserve this craft, the sword's strength, and how to die with honor while protecting it. Deftness and skill were legendary, and the art of precision was written on scrolls, sometimes hidden in caves. Nakamura died upholding this tradition. His son Tesoro, traveling the Central Plains, fighting to collect the other famed swords in order to fulfill the wish of his dying sensei. For the enthusiast, the right mental attitude was essential, as well as numerous forms and katas. Tesoro was of undaunting courage and at the peak of fluidity and excellence. His free flow of spiritual harmony was second to none, and the rigorous training ultimately enabled the sensei and sword to blend like one, like the brook does with the river, like the chi to Mother Gaia, in a most harmonious repose and splendor. Swordsmanship is dipped in character molding rituals, the glory of love, of balance, of sacrifice, as well as mutual trust and respect for one's opponent. Forging of the blade was godlike, with prayers being said, trials in combat, and the evoking of the Tao, which enabled one to lightfoot or ascend like the falcon with elegance and grace of gliding maneuvers, like a bevy of eagles, swift in flight with immaculate timing. The light of the sword, like adversity, is a tool in the hands of the supreme alchemist. The sharp blades of corporate greed, fences, thrusting and dodging, using feints and trickery without remorse, bobbing and weaving like Joe Fraser, evading the shield of empathy, concern, and compassion sent their way by the messengers of light, of swordsmanship. This is so unfortunate for the hapless many. Yet the sword, a product of love, remains unyielding, wielding poisonous edges, viruses, tornadoes, tsunamis, and war to transform my callousness and complacency into prayers of love divine, to increase my gratitude and sense of harmony for the elevation of the spirit. Love's sword is like a candle in the darkness, like Zatoichi, though blind yet full of the spirit of sacrifice and extremely heightened senses, more than enough to give the enemy away. Love drips, though, like raindrops. As such, our earthly garden takes time to be fertilized and harvested. Life's struggles are seemingly the uncomely side of swords that direct the energies against Mother Gaia, against us. They slash across the heavenly blue with toxic flares, dig at the earth for hidden bunkers. Yet I repeatedly deny their invaluable lessons, unable to discern love's capacity to transform, of knowing that it remains in charge of its own creation. Nakamura died for the spirit of the sword. Let us protect this consciousness, the quintessence in all sentient and non-sentient beings, created on wings of light, for the swordsmanship of the eternal. Lantern Carrier, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful when you come here and share such wonderful words with us. You know, words to touch the soul. Read some of your feedback. I can glance some of it here and it's really lovely. Beautiful imagery. And I don't know, just takes me somewhere else, which I think it's intended to do, and it does. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to sing a second song now. This song has is a story, really, and it's actually it's a story within a story. We were with some friends in northern France and went to the huge military cemetery in Etaples. And it's the largest one in northern France, when one of the people said, I think my great-grandfather is buried here. So we immediately started to look up the name and see if we could find him. And it turned out to be a just really, really sad story. So the great-grandfather had married her great-grandmother, and they hadn't been married very long, and a baby was born. And he went off with the call of France, but before people were actually conscripted. And he died within the first wave. I think he went to the military camp in Etaples, went straight to the trenches and didn't come back. And the really sad thing is that the mother, her great-grandmother, didn't feel she could live without him, and she committed suicide, which was absolutely awful. And they lived somewhere in the south, I'm not too sure where. And so my friend's grandmother, the little baby, was moved to family, and the family was living up north, and that's where they're from now. I hadn't realised they were actually from somewhere, you know, on the south coast, and had gone up into the kind of Blackpool area in Lancashire. And that was the really sad story. So we started to look for this this man who she'd obviously never met, and but felt it, wanted to see it, and we couldn't find it. We were walking all over, trying to use the map and not being very successful. And we were going to give up, and then she said, I just get the sense and the feeling it's over there. So we all went, trooped over to the bit, and there it was. She was so right. She just knew where that grave was, and it was really very moving, and we all cried, actually. There was something about, he spoke to her, and of course, I find the whole First World War thing such a terribly sad thing anyway, such a terrible waste of life, really. And so this is called Hearts and Tears. In the summer of 1913, their first baby daughter was born. They bloomed like the roses in bright summer sun, and nobody noticed the thorn. By the winter of 1914, the government made their advance. Never a conscript, a man of ideals, he answered the call to France. But the winds of winter blew, and the tides of war were turned. He was injured, and somehow she knew to these shores he would never return. Small baby, go well on your way to begin a new life far away. Your father now lies with the poppies in France, and your mother on earth could not stay. We were standing at the gates, viewing the graves there below, looking for the resting place of the one you had never known. It's the story of love and despair, a story of hearts and of tears. You were seeking to find him from so long ago, and he let you know he was there. The lost generation were meeting at last and speaking through the tears. Thank you so much. It's a bit hard to sing that one. It's so not my family, but it touches me beyond it, really. So next we have no stranger to these evenings, I'm really pleased to say, and no stranger to GFMA, comes to lots and lots of events and has actually been down for things to perform and to be here with us. It's Antoinette Clark-Akalani. So she's not a local performer, as you can gather, that lives in Bristol, And this, of course, is one of the most wonderful things, and we've had it this evening here from lots of different places, people joining us from all over. And when we've got Zoom, this is the wonderful thing, isn't it? We can reach out and people can join us, people who could never have joined us. And we started this in lockdown and we carried on, actually, because we've really liked it. So Antoinette's performed so many times here. Andy's part of the GFMA Writers Group, which also is on Zoom, so that people can join. And it's always a pleasure to have you with us, Antoinette. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you very much. The first poem I'm going to read today is a congratulation to a dear friend. Yesterday was your special day. I wish you joy and good cheer, good health and happiness, and may you be abundantly blessed. May prosperity knock on your door, bringing harmony, peace, happiness galore. May your hopes and dreams come true. These are what I wish for you. May you continue to learn from life's lessons, whether good or bad. All experiences teach us things. May you use every encounter to enhance and make your life better. An additional year is not a retirement credential, but an opportunity to live life to its fullest potential. So take up your staff and soldier on. So much you've achieved, but there's lots more to be done. Happy birthday, Louisa. The next one is music, an exceller of life. Music is good for you. It can soothe, relax, entertain, and move you. It's a mental booster, a joy enhancer. Music is a tonic to the ear, so listen without fear. Choose your music wisely and move with its energy. It enhances and gives you spiritual wealth. It is a tonic for mental health. Music promotes relaxation and releases frustration. It can enhance the experiences of meditation. So take a break. Listen to its enchanting vibrations. I also write reflections about during my nursing and health visiting career. So this is one about my health visiting career. It's called The Potty. In days gone by, toilets were out of doors. To ease yourself, you used the outside loos. Potties were used in the night. They were kept under beds out of sight. Some potties were beautifully decorated, and some were just plain white. Some were made of porcelain and chipped or broke if you accidentally dropped them. The cheap ones were made of enameled tin, but they all served the same purpose, and that was to wee in. There was a little girl who used to wet her bed. For this, the contents of the potty were thrown on her head. This continued until she left home. Now a woman, the little girl has grown, and she's a successful person, despite of the wee occurrences and the many dosing experiences. And that was one of my health visiting children, who in the end was taken away and put into foster care. And I think she was eventually adopted. The last one is called Dawn. My bedroom was bright very, very bright. The closed curtains had let in the daylight. I looked at the clock beside my bed. 1:30 was what that clock said. I felt rested and had soundly slept. So out of my warm bed I quickly leapt. My Zoom meeting starts at 2, so I must hurry. I'd slept for 14 hours without care nor worry. I had a hot shower and quickly dressed me, then pulled back the curtains. What a sight to see! The full moon was shining and smiled down at me. It was not at all dawn, just very early morn. I looked in wonder at the sky, star-spangled sky. The exhilarating scenery filled me with joy. I watched the panorama for as long as I could, enjoying the beauty of the celestial neighborhood. It looked like a canopy of diamonds on high, enhanced by the big moon hanging in the sky. I went back to bed and soundly did sleep, and woke up in time for my Zoom meeting to keep. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you so much for coming and reading all those wonderful poems to us. A lovely selection as ever, all different and put together, and it kind of pulling different bits of your life and showing us those. I loved your description of the benefits of music, really, because I think that's
Thank you.
Absolutely true, and would love to say at this point that we do have a lovely GFMA singing group, which is partly in the room and partly on Zoom. So if anyone wants some of those benefits, do come and join us. And if you've enjoyed my singing, then I'm a facilitator of that, so it would be really great to come and sing with all of us, because we all enjoy it. And I really loved your health visitor and the story behind it at the end. You know, you really kind of see life, don't you, in those kind of jobs?
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. So it's that time of the evening. A big thank you to everyone who's already performed. It's been really lovely. It's just such a lovely place to share, isn't it? This group where we come on and do that, I think. And we're going now to go to the guest for this evening. And the guest is Peter Caldwell. And Peter Caldwell, I said earlier, was a journalist, playwright. He says no, but I'm going to say yes. Writes plays, short stories, and has been linked to GFMA for about, is it 15 years? Have I got that right? So about 15 years. So certainly no stranger to GFMA. And I'm just going to bring Peter on, really, because what we're going to do tonight is we haven't planned anything. We're going to sit and talk together about all Peter's work, and later on there'll be an opportunity for you to ask Peter some questions. So, Peter Caldwell, come and join us. Here he is, live in the studio.
Let's have a chat, Ross, shall we?
Let's definitely.
I'm from Catford. I was born in a prefab. My dear dad was a driver. My mum, a home help. I passed the 11 plus at Foster Park Primary School.
Oh, yes.
I went for an interview at Brockley County Grammar School,
Yes.
where they sneered at me
Oh.
for being working class. I think since then, people have, some people have said, obviously you're middle class now. I'm not, I'm working class through and through. And the Orwell thing we worked on started in 2010,
Yes.
when I interviewed James Headwell at Greenwich Theatre
Greenwich Theatre,
for
yes.
Greenwich Time. I was the editor of Greenwich Time, where there was at Greenwich Council a terrible bullying culture. but we can go into that on another
Yes.
occasion.
Yes.
I got on very well, I thought, with James,
Yes.
a really nice man, and I'm always sort of in the book I talk about diving into
Yes.
situations. So at the end of the interview, I said to James, I've got an idea for a George Orwell musical. Now, obviously, somebody would say, oh, that's interesting, very nice to meet you, and leave it there.
Yes.
But James said, I like Orwell, have a go. Now, I've had several goes in my lifetime, I'm glad to say. So by the time I got to the DLR station,
Yes.
I had the first line from the first song, which is, his name was Eric Blair, but the likeness stops right there. and that really...
Excellent.
That really inspired me, and I
Yes.
thought on the train,
Yes.
this is going to get done, you know.
Yes, yes.
So I gave some other songs some thought, you know,
Yes.
from his books and essays. He
Yes.
writes, as you may know, Orwell
Prolific,
wrote
right.
terrific
Yes.
essays on
Yes.
all kinds of subjects. But what I needed was a musician. Obviously, I can't even play the triangle. I had no experience, no background in the theatre.
No.
You know, having been born in a Catford prefab, you know, and I was going to be a footballer as well.
Right,
You know,
yes,
I was
yes.
pretty good but that didn't work out, so I went into journalism at one of the local papers and all the rest of it. Anyway, so I needed a musician.
Right.
And one night in the car park at Sainsbury's, thank God for that, I bumped into a really old friend of mine, and you know, how are you doing? And I said, well, actually, I'm looking for
Yes.
a musician to work with on this crazy Orwell thing. And he said, oh, my son's a musician and singer-songwriter. His name was Carl Picton.
Oh, I
He
know.
lived in Charlton. I think he might be back home there in Charlton. But he was just wonderful. And it never would have happened without Carl. And so I went to meet him. We sat down. I had the words from the first song, which is called Southwold Morning, which we can't play, can we?
We can
Oh,
have
we
a
can
go.
try.
Yeah.
And he came up with a lovely version and taught me all about syllables in songs,
Yes.
you know. And over the next 18 months, I suppose, we wrote 8 songs between us. And he said, you're getting better. Obviously, on the early ones, he changed them around a fair bit.
Yes.
But by song 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, he was saying, oh, you've
got it.
You've
So
got
you-
it,
yes,
Peter, you know.
absolutely, yes.
The last song is 1984.
Yes.
We did a miners song,
Yes.
and we did a couple of songs from Orwell's books.
Yes.
And it was always going to be, and as James said, an unashamedly proletarian tribute to this great man.
Yes.
I'd read biographies, but I always thought that it was too academic, stuffy, you know, and the writers seemed to be talking as much about themselves as this
Yeah.
incredible man, you know.
And
so
you wanted to
I
put something else
absolutely, Rose.
Yes,
I
yes.
had it in the back of my head,
Yes.
which I told to James,
Yes.
that one day I'd like to do something.
Yes.
And of course it all happened. In 2012, it had 4 or 5 nights at Greenwich Theatre.
Yes.
And 2
yes.
years later, we went to Lower East Side,
Yes.
New York.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
a small theatre
Yeah.
that had links to Greenwich Theatre. So
Fantastic.
James
So
put
they
me
do.
onto them,
Yes.
and they said, "Yeah, why not come over?"
Gosh, so
And
it's
we-
had wide sort of
Yeah.
coverage.
Mm.
Shall we? And Charlton House.
Oh, and Charlton
I think
House.
that's where the filming of it is. On,
Yes.
If you go on GFMA TV,
Yeah.
on is the channel, and I watched it through the other day actually, and I was really impressed with it.
Oh.
Part 1 and part 2. I
Oh,
absolutely
good,
loved
yeah.
it. Shall we hear one of those songs? Which one are we going to hear first? What have we got there?
Southwold Morning, perhaps.
Do you want to tell us just a bit about it before we hear it?
Well, Southwold was
Yes.
the place that Blair's parents had a place there. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's actually an incredibly boring place. Without a bus or a
Yes.
station.
Oh,
You know,
right.
it's I'm sure it was second homes to people. You know,
Yes, yes.
and we actually went there once and started playing some songs in a pub there, and I think
What are we
they
listening
wanted
to with about
play
the
the
song, in
police.
case we missed the words? What are
Oh
we-
yes. Right, the first line was his name was Eric Blair, but they like this stops right
Stops
there.
right there.
His words were always this, and his mind was always fair,
Yeah.
which was
So
lovely.
that's lovely. Let's see if we can hear it.
Yeah.
As Eric Arthur Blair. Can you believe that? Bloody Blair! The lying bloody bastard! Meanwhile, middle class. And some. That is mine. I'd like to settle. Balance in the silence. Healing transfer. And they story. Then we I like to settle. Settle. I like to settle.
So this song is kind of telling us about.
Just check, sorry, because I had to change over the sound.
So this song's telling us a little bit about Orwell's life, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Mentioning Eton and
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually rewritten the script to bring in dialogue via a young woman from the Daily Mail
yes,
in search of Orwell. And so we obviously needed a tramp song because it was being set in what was called a spike.
yes. I know what Spike is,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Well, the original Spike was in fact in Peckham, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
It's Gordon Road.
yeah.
Was
And there was
Gordon
one
Road.
in, there was one in Deptford.
There was one in Deptford, but the
Carrington
original
House.
what
Yeah,
called
oh.
the Spike was
Oh.
out of there because they were given a spike
Oh,
to break stones up when they arrived.
what is it now? It'd be lovely to come.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I don't know if it's.
Yeah.
I think it became a.
Let's look into it.
I think it became a health clinic actually later, the Gordon Road one. But that's why it was it. They gave
Yeah.
them a spike and they had to
Mm.
break up stones with it before their
Yeah.
dinner.
Correct.
Quite unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
What's your what's the draw to Orwell? Because I mean, I love it, but you know, what is it about
just
it for
that-
you?
Just that he didn't just write about it, he lived it. In fact, what was the name of that famous author who wrote about the Spanish Civil War? Yeah, well, he wrote anyway. He's ever so famous.
Yeah.
God, don't ever get old.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, he wrote about the
Poetry.
sorry.
Poetry.
No,
not-
a novel. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's got two M's in it.
Oh,
hasn't it?
yes.
Hemingway. One M.
Yes, Hemingway.
Hemingway.
Yeah, fabulous
Well,
stuff.
Hemingway went there and had his bit on the side, staying in a lovely hotel,
Yes,
you know, in Barcelona.
yes.
And Eric Arthur Blair was down the front, and he stuck his head up and got shot in the neck. You
Wow.
know
No, I
about that?
didn't know.
Yeah. Thank God he survived,
Yeah, how terrible.
because he hadn't written
Yes.
Animal Farm or
Yes.
1984 by then.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I just love the fact that he lived there. He went
So
down.
something about him living it, and you know, rather
Absolutely.
than just sitting outside of it,
Observing,
writing about
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it's participating, not observing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
him as a hero along the lines of the great heroes from the last
Yes.
century, you
Yes.
know.
Well, he dared to write that stuff. Actually,
Absolutely.
it wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he'd be amazed to think that, you know, people
Absolutely, yeah.
studying
And
Animal
it's more
Farm in
relevant
school, you
than
know,
ever, yeah,
at
obviously.
the time.
Yeah,
At the time, it
Yeah.
was not acceptable.
yeah. He also had a difficult time with socialists in this country,
Right.
because obviously they wanted to support Russia, you know, and him having a go at Stalin, you know,
Yes.
oh, yeah,
Yes.
bloody all this. and-
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I just think he's,
Yeah. So you kind of wanted to bring it to people's
Yeah.
attention.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
This kind of approach to it, you know, there's been lots of books and biographies
Yes.
on Orwell, but they all seem so stuffy to me,
Yes.
which is, you know, that's why we called it One Georgie Orwell, because it's like a football joke.
Yes. Yes.
One Georgie Orwell,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
which
Georgie
went
Bates,
down particularly well at Charlton House
Of course.
that evening, didn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just love the man, you know.
Well, it's really worth watching for anyone who hasn't watched it.
Mm.
It is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Are we going to hear anything else from the show? Have we got anything else? What about that lovely, the fantastic one? There's something about the treatment of it, isn't there? The style of what you
Yes,
did.
you mentioned Brecht earlier.
I
I
think
must
it's-
look into Brecht.
Yeah, I think it's Brechtian, and that is about bringing something
Yeah.
to the people.
Mm.
That's what it was about. It's not like art, and you know, it's
Sure.
about what goes out there, which would fit totally with Orwell. Actually,
Yeah, I'm going
in
to look it
itself.
up and read it.
Oh, you'd love
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Mm. Thanks for this one.
Okay.
All night, no. All night, no. All night, no. Oh, boy, oh, boy, this oh, my rose.
Moves through all of them. It's absolutely
And
brilliant.
then O Bankers.
Oh, Bankers was great.
Oh,
Yeah,
Bankers,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Bankers. We didn't expect that coming.
No.
It must have had great impact at the time, because I think it has impact now.
Mm. Yeah, I think so, you know. I think the whole Orwell thing still suffers from that academic approach to Orwell, you know.
Yes, I do know.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
which is why we made that, you know.
And are going to remake it,
Yes,
which is really
it's now
exciting.
called Eric, and it's being produced by this wonderful organisation who put on tonight. Thanks to the wonderful Louisa
Absolutely.
and Jill.
And Jill, yeah, absolutely.
And
so that's something for us to look forward to in the future. What other things have you done as well? Because you've got lots of things, haven't you?
well, actually, yeah, I wrote a kind of a half-hour comedy thing called Dictaphone, but
Fine.
I won't go into that. I also wrote a piece about my first editor, Charlie King, called it's just a reading piece. I don't know if Louisa could just put it on for a dozen people at some point.
Oh, that would be great.
Because I found his scrapbook, and he was an amazing person, as well as being incredibly kind to me. Because when I joined the Kentshire Independent, I was hopeless, hapless, hopeless, a working class boy who should have been a footballer. In a middle class world.
Yes,
world,
yes, yes.
you know.
No, I can
But
imagine, yeah.
He,
It's about
he,
that fitting,
yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely. And
God.
he's stuck by me.
Yes.
I had a breakthrough article about Sandy Shaw, which
Oh.
and that gave me confidence, and you know,
Not look back.
being a
It's,
sports editor,
wow.
all sorts. And these, of course,
Yes, show us these.
this was published last week.
Buzzing.
Tales of Empathy and Optimism. I started work on it, writing short stories during COVID.
Yes.
And it was just so enjoyable.
Yes,
it was just so
absolutely.
enjoyable. You know, I would start writing about some character from the past and make up stuff, or capture the essence of his or her personality and what he or she did, and come up with a twist and a nice ending. And I realised I'm not interested in dark, you know, that seems to be everywhere these days. You can't turn on Netflix or anything without finding something dark.
Yes,
so empathy and optimism.
How lovely.
And also,
and all very
3 or 4 years ago, he showed the audience. I took a journalism class at a wonderful primary school in Charlton Manor.
Oh yes.
Thanks to the incredible head teacher Tim Baker. And the kids, they were only 10 or 11 years, 5 and 6.
Yes.
And I thought, let's have some fun once a week. And so I would make up little one paragraph stories, and they had to work out the headlines.
Oh, have a read one out so we can
Oh,
see it.
in fact, I've got one. This came direct from a shift I did at Sunday Mirror Sport
Yes.
between 1979 and 1993. 14 years. Oh, where's she gone? Oh, could you hold it?
Yes.
Oh, won't be long. It's quite early, I think. You'll do well to get this. Okay. This is a picture of someone very annoyed after a squash match.
Yes.
Okay. Lisa Baker was beaten in the final of the London Squash Championships, but complained that the court was too slippery. Her opponent kept obstructing her, and the umpire did nothing about it. Now, the headline is 6 characters and 4 characters.
You've got to guess the headline.
Yeah. So all the answers else, no cheating.
No.
So it's you know.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
One, obviously, at first the kids found it difficult, and the teacher who was in the room with us found it difficult.
Yeah.
But amazingly, after 3 or 4 weeks,
managed.
yeah, towards the end of the lesson, they shout out, headlines competition, headlines competition. And it got to the stage where I was saying, no shouting out. You've got to come, if you think one of the words is something, come round and whisper it in my ear.
Yeah.
Now the advice.
So they found it really engaging.
Oh, playing with words.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Playing with bloody words.
How exciting.
Anyway, I told them, obviously, if you read the story and you see 6 and 4, you look in here for 6 and 4.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Yes.
Her name is Lisa, for example. So that
something
fits.
Lisa, yeah.
Something Lisa. Okay, so I tell them something Lisa. And, but, yeah, you won't get it, will you?
Yes.
Well, it's a pun. Try and think of a pun. Think of a famous Lisa.
Mona.
Yeah,
Mona
get it?
Lisa, yeah. Oh,
Yeah. No, Moaner. She complained afterwards.
Because she complained, Mona.
Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa, yeah.
And of course, the kids said that. Oh, sir, you know, and 2 or 3 weeks later, some others are in here as well. It was great.
Well, you can
really
see how that would really kind of
Yeah.
enhance people's knowledge.
You can buy it, everyone, on Amazon.
It looks great.
I can't remember the price.
Oh, that's great. Have you got
But
another one? Read another one. They're
Ah,
good.
they're good, aren't
Good, yeah, read another.
Okay. Have we got time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'll do this one. All the different fuels for the motorcycle racing, you'll get this, racing at Brands Hatch were due to arrive at the track on the first day in April.
Oh, April Fool's Day.
Fool's
Day.
Oh, good. April Fool's Day. Yeah. And finally, the last one. Hold on.
So good.
Must do the last one. The kids loved it, honestly.
I bet. I think we
Just
enjoyed
playing,
it actually.
just playing with words.
3 children here enjoying it.
Editorial called, and finally, this is the last one.
Yeah.
Editorial called Peter, the chief sub-editor, into his office and told him not to use so many puns in his headlines. He told Peter, sometimes I think I see you as a little boy who has never really grown up.
Something boy, I think.
How many letters?
Oh, sorry, I should have told you. 5 and 3.
5 and 3. Something boy, do you think?
Peter Fitz.
Oh, Peter. Yeah, go on.
Peter Pan.
Oh, Peter Pan! Great, aren't they?
Yeah. The kids loved it, honestly.
It's great.
Yeah.
And this book here, Buzzing, these are whole short stories.
Yeah, the first one
Yeah.
is actually.
You could read us a bit of one of these. If you
Okay.
wanted to.
Yeah, I don't. The first one, Saving Mike the postman,
Yes.
is actually based on a true story.
Oh, that would
I
be
took
nice.
it to the seaside
Yes.
and mentioned Dickens and everybody.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, hold on. No, where is it? Bumping it into Christopher Hadley. Of all the people to bump into totally out of the blue, Christopher Hadley would have been up there, even though it had been all of 15 years. We'd been in the same fourth year class at primary school, as it was in those days. So at the Watford Gap services, we must have both been 26-ish. One immediately funny thing was that I even remembered the date of his birthday, October the 29th. Mine was November the 19th, so he'd always be those 21 days older than me. I must have had that memory as part of the effect that Christopher had on me. At school, he was very clever, easily the cleverest boy in Mr. Bloomfield's class. We weren't big mates as such. I was more into football and cricket than English and arithmetic, but I was certainly fascinated by him and his cleverness. Part of it was the way he was with it. He was no boastful, clever clogs. There was just a calm authority about Christopher. Oh, it's good. I thought it was longer. Christopher seemed to take a real. Oh no, I've missed out a page.
You've done it.
Yeah, sorry. About Christopher Hadley, a kind of wisdom. His gentle smile was something else as well. And when he was saying something to a small group of us, myself mostly on the outside of things, he seemed to make a perfect kind of sense. His childhood words flowing all around us somehow. I know it sounds really silly, but I can even remember wondering as he spoke during those dreamlike moments if he was so much wiser than me because of those 21 days between us. It seemed like 21 years. So here we both were, stopping for a coffee, him heading back to London somewhere, and me heading north to see someone in the family. I saw him first coming into the Costa area. I'm normally hopeless with names, but great with faces. In this case, it was both. He sat down 3 or 4 tables from me and actually looked in my direction without any sign of recognition on his part. He was about 5'8" or 9", which made sense, and he had the same slightly egg-shaped Benedict Cumberbatch type of face, smart, clean-shaven, and a small briefcase placed to his right at the table for 2. He sipped his coffee and opened a novel. I've never been slow at diving into situations. Why should we? Why should we be? What's the problem? So after a couple of minutes, I sauntered over, excused myself, and asked if he was Christopher Hadley. He smiled in that same friendly fashion and said he certainly was. It was okay for me to sit down and rabbit on about how great it was to see him, about how we hadn't been big mates, but how I'd always liked him and been impressed by him. He was cool long before it was cool to be cool. He smiled again. Good days, weren't there? I was never good at sport, but you were. I asked him who he remembered most, and he rattled off Roy O'Neill, Peter Tate, and Kathleen Clark. Katie Clark, I almost shouted. I was totally in love with her. She used to get chapped lips, but always seemed so grown up. She lived up the road from me in Battersby Road, and I remember standing outside her gate one afternoon after school, not knowing what to do or say. There was a terrible silence, and I asked her in desperation when her birthday was. November, she said. November, I said. I'm November. What date? 19th, she said. 19th, I roared. That's mine too. It was like we were married. What had happened after that? Asked Christopher. Well, nothing really, I said. I was hopeless. Years later, I got it into my head that the way forward with women was to make them laugh or at least talk to them, and that helped. But you're stuck with some things, I suppose. What about you? What are you up to? Christopher, he was never a Chris, flashed the same self-deprecating smile and said he was teaching creative writing at Durham University. It was some sort of holiday, and he was visiting his parents in Honor Oak. His girlfriend, Helen, who also worked at the university, had headed north to Edinburgh for the break. At that time, I told him, I was working for a semi-professional football club, coaching the junior lads and doing most of the writing for the match day program. I really enjoy the writing, I told Christopher. I write match reports and paint pictures of the players, and I try to make them more interesting than the usual guff, adding a touch of humour here and there, and giving one or two players nicknames to brighten it all up, like the Grinch and Gargamel from the Smurfs, my assistant coach and a volunteer. Christopher seemed to take a real interest, which encouraged me to dive in further. I'm like that, given half the chance. To tell the truth, I said, I'd love to write short stories, not novels. They'd be beyond me. Just short ones with maybe a simple message and twist in the tale. Do you think I should join a creative writing class? You could do, said Christopher. You'd pick up some good tips, I'm sure. But you've already got the energy and enthusiasm from your match reports. So why not bash, I always use the word bash, why not bash something out about 1,000 words? It's not a lot once you get going. We can exchange emails and you can send them to me to have a look, if you like. I couldn't have been more pleased, meeting Christopher Hadley and staying in touch. As we exchanged email addresses, Christopher added a little bit of advice. Why not think of people or situations that had a great or interesting effect on you or your life, whenever it was, and turn them into fiction? We shook hands firmly, and I said, good idea, Christopher. About 1,000 words. Not bad. Hope he likes it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's been so wonderful talking to you. I think we ought to look out to the audience and see if people would like to ask a question. This is
Yeah,
where we
sure.
do that, so
Yeah.
we can see everybody and see. I'm sure there's questions for Peter. Oh, if you want to speak, you'll need to unmute because we won't be able to hear you otherwise.
Oh, I forgot about that.
You forgot? Yes, there are people.
Oh, they're still
You just
there.
think you're in.
Oh, God, yeah.
Nobody's got a question for Peter.
Orwellian?
Yeah, or anything about the show or Orwell or
Headlines.
headlines, yeah, anything at all.
Okay. Ah, very good question. I played for the top under 16 team in Greenwich, and the manager ran a sports shop in Wellington Street, Woolwich.
Oh.
It was called Club Sports. They had another office, the main office in New Cross, and so the manager of the team I played for took me on just for £5 a week or whatever, but there was also between the sports shop and the Kentish Independent newspaper was a cafe, Carl's Cafe, that we went to. We met someone from the newspaper who also ran an adults team at the same time, and obviously rather like this. I said, "Oh, I'd quite have a go," He said, "Well, we need a junior cub reporter." So I was interviewed by Charlie King, who I've written the thing about, and he took me on. But for the 6-month trial, I was hopeless, honestly. I went to one story at the top of what's that road that goes up in Plumstead? Is it not Plum Lane? Is it? Oh, some road, some lane that goes up. Anyway, yeah. Well, I had to go and see someone who just retired from the Arsenal. That's all he'd done. I mean, he wasn't the boss of the Arsenal or anything, and it was incredibly hot. So I walked up this hill. I can remember his name to this day. It was Mr. Tappenden, So I spent about 5 minutes with him. He had a cup of tea and said, when are you actually leaving, Mr. Tappenden? Oh, 2 weeks' time and all the rest. I said, "Oh, the very best of luck to you, mate." And I've come back. I had no information at all. And Charlie King said, Charlie never once called me Peter, and he didn't with the other people. And he said, "You better go up there again." He called me Mister. "You better go up there again, Mister. We'll need more of that." Anyway, the story went in about 2 weeks later. This man could have died, And in the first paragraph, it said Mr. Tappenden retired recently. Oh, that's funny, Oh, it was great. Great.
Oh, that's so great.
Oh, yeah, good. How did I get into? Oh, I was working for do you remember the name Marshall Cavendish?
Yes.
They make, oh, you
Yes.
do? Oh, good.
That's
They
right.
made all kinds of different magazines, didn't
Yes, yes.
they? Well, one of them was Football Handbook. And because I'd actually played 2 years in Finland
Yes.
by that stage, so I went for the interview, and by then I was quite good and experienced, and having played as well, so they took me on straight away. And one of my jobs was to go to Somerset to interview a referee for we called it something, on the line or something, or grab the whistle or something, And so I would go once a month to see this referee, and he was about to retire, and he said, "Oh, I could tell you some stories, Peter." Oh. So he did, and I got on to the Sunday Mirror, and I got onto the Sunday Mirror, and they said, "Oh, the worst players he'd referee and all that kind of thing."
Oh, wow.
And they used a 2-page spread, I think 3 weeks running, 3 Sundays running,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a job there as a sub-editor and did one of the headlines.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, do you remember Kevin Keegan?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, one day my shift changed, and I was allowed to leave at 5 o'clock to get back to my kids. I was a single parent for a while. And Tony Smith, the editor, who previously said, "What a headline, Peter, that Mona Lisa." He said, "We're really struggling with Kevin Keegan because he played his last game and scored a goal." Okay. He said, "Well, you know, we were all thinking about it. You know, we can't do anything with Kevin. We can't do anything with Keegan. Kevin's above would be good, you know." Anyway, he said, "Before you go, give it some thought, but you're good at these." And I suggested to him, "What about One for the Road?" He was playing his last game and he scored the only goal of the match. So he said, "One for the Road." I love it. He used to live in Charlton, the sports editor. So yeah, it was great.
Oh, it's absolutely great that seems like that's your forte, to be able to do that. You can think these things up, you're snappy and sharp, to kind of make that into that fabulous book that's going to help young people develop some of those writing skills. I think it's really wonderful. It's been my great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
It's really been lovely. And I think we have to end, really, don't we, Sandy? So I just want to say a great big thank you to you, because
Thank you.
So
you must get Bill Pro. He's fantastic musician.
You're fantastic. So we want to say a good night to everybody. A big thank you to Louisa and Jill and the whole GFMA team.
They're amazing, aren't they?
They are amazing.
Oh, they're
It's
amazing.
absolutely amazing. It's wonderful
Really are.
being part of GFMA. And important to mention, I always mention it, but it does need mentioning, that we're still partly on Zoom and we're still running lots and lots of fantastic workshops are being run at GFMA. There's meditation and Tai Chi we're still doing, and yoga, and the singing group is in the room, or come to this drumming. I mean, there's all sorts of things. Go onto the GFMA website and look at it, because it's all wonderful and you're all welcome to all of it. A big thank you to the audience, people who came tonight. Without an audience, there wouldn't be a programme. And all the wonderful performers. We've had Constanza Maria Zonconto, who's had to go, Louisa Lamarchand, of course, Lantern Carrier,
Plumber.
and a plumber, and Antoinette Clark Akalani, and our special guest Peter Corwell. It's been a fantastic evening. I'm sure it was really
Thank you, Oz. Thanks, everyone.
lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and you.